He doesn't really remember why, but Owen was in the oddest mood. He rarely felt like this, bored, unloved, and somewhat lonely. The lonely part he understood. After all, his mom, Anne, had taken his younger siblings shopping, and his sister and brothers were with friends. No one was at the Galbraith home but Owen and his father, who was in the basement working on bills at his desk. Owen was so accustomed to constant and excessive company that although he had never felt this way before, he had to admit for the first time in his life he was bored. It was a beautiful day, sunny, warm, not very humid, and still early, about 9 in the morning. He should be out playing, but there was no one to play with. His sister and brothers were gone, and it even seemed as if his neighborhood friends were otherwise occupied. Maybe he would go downstairs to the rathskeller and see what Dad was doing. Owen quickly realized that this was a very bad idea. Dad needed neither the company nor the distraction. He was in the bill-paying zone, writing checks, worrying, calculating, and frequently cursing. He was in no mood for the noise created by a young boy of 8 who should be elsewhere. "Owen, go outside and play," Ellsworth tersely suggested. But Dad, Owen, go outside and play." He understood instantly that his father's exclamation was not a request, but a requirement. Crestfallen, he moped up the stairs slowly, feeling very, very sorry for himself. He sat down on the back porch, which was nothing more than a concrete stoop with 2 steps, contemplating his options. He finally settled on the perfect course of action, sure to guarantee his now desired outcome. Vengeance. After all, the Galbraith men, and for that matter the women also, excluding Anne, were prideful, sensitive creatures. A volatile combination. Owen soon had a well-developed picture clearly exposed in his imagination. He would teach them. He would run away from home. Yes, he even considered getting a long stick with a kerchief attached with a bow-like knot at the end of the stick containing whatever necessary items a runaway required. He soon realized, though, that he only had handkerchiefs which were smaller than the gingham or plaid ones appropriate for the adventure. He also could not find a stick of required length and strength. But most importantly, Mom was not at home to make him a sandwich for the journey. He would need that special peanut butter and jelly sandwich unique to his taste, with butter. Yes, a peanut butter, jelly, and butter sandwich. Owen's favorite. He decided to drop the Norman Rockwell fantasy. Man up, rough it, and go it alone. He got up from the stoop, looked around, and thought to himself, "I'll show them all. I'll run away and never come back." There was only one thing left to do. Go west, young man. Go west. To Lord knows where. His thoughts were varied, emotional, and completely unconcerned with the futility of this stupid thing he was about to do. Regardless, he was charged with emotion, self-righteousness, and the determination to prove his point. Never mind the fact that he had no idea where he was going, nothing to eat or drink, and no money to do anything. But how dare his family not love him and amuse him when he wanted it? On he trudged, each step adding more fuel to the fire of his rage and hurt feelings. Soon, however, his rage softened. He had walked more than 3/4 of the way to his cousin's house. He'd never walked this far from home in his life. Going this far, almost 2 miles, always required his bicycle. He wasn't tired, physically. He was lean, young, and athletic. A trip like this was no problem, but he was getting a bit hungry. Maybe by now they had all learned their lesson. As he continued westward, now a bit less deliberately, Owen began to imagine the scene back home. The pain, agony, and desperation he surely must be causing his family gave him pause. He stopped. He didn't want to hurt anyone. He just wanted them to miss him, to love him. Well, that was their job. They were neglecting their responsibility to him. How dare they leave him alone to feel bored and then kick him out of the house? They deserved the pain. How inconsiderate. He was doing them a favor by teaching them this lesson. But because of his love for them all, he would end their pain and misery. He would immediately turn around and head home. Owen knew that his mom would be devastated. At this moment, she was undoubtedly berating, between uncontrollable sobs, her thoughtless husband for not allowing, if not causing, this horrible and unnecessary tragedy to occur. Her precious son Owen was gone, missing with no trace, no note, nothing. Where could he be? Well, surely by now the local police had been alerted and the manhunt begun in earnest. Yeah, certainly his father, sister, and brothers had already been questioned. Every nook and cranny in the house had been searched, and all of the neighbors and the parents of his friends had been contacted in this desperate attempt to find him safe and alive. His pace back home quickened, not because he regretted his decision, but his empathy required that he end their well-deserved suffering as soon as possible. Well, surely they had learned their lesson. All Owen could think of now was the impending tearful but joyful reunion. Yes, tears of joy. They would all proclaim their guilt and beg his forgiveness, which he would most graciously grant. The walk back home was as deliberate as the departure, but filled instead with happiness and excitement rather than the abandonment and scorn he felt at leaving several hours ago. Each step brought him closer to the happy reunion his mind savored, along with the sure knowledge that every member of his family, now full of despair, guilt, and remorse, would experience the elation and joy of his longed-for arrival. As he entered the outskirts of a suburban community, he was initially surprised not to hear the high-pitched wail of sirens as the police pursued their desperate search. Approaching his home, he wondered why he saw no one rushing around and searching. There was no car in the detached garage and no one to be seen in the Galbraith backyard and adjoining yards. When at last he entered through the kitchen door at the back of the home, he heard none of the sounds constantly generated by a large family. He stopped for a moment and realized that, of course, the house was the first place to be thoroughly searched. They were with the police, neighbors, and other members of the search team, scouring the entire community, garages, homes, businesses, and wooded areas to find this poor lost boy. Assured of his conclusion, he would go back inside the house and downstairs to enjoy the cool of the basement to await their reunion. His mind was still active with calm anticipation of the joyful event when, as he reached the bottom of the stairwell, there he was. His dad was still at his desk, working on bills. Why wasn't Dad out searching with the rest of the family and community? What could he possibly be doing that was more important than finding his son? In an instant, his father looked over his right shoulder, gave Owen an annoyed look, and said, "Owen, I thought I told you to go outside and play." He would never get over it, but at that moment, for the first, but not the last time in his life, he became fully aware of his insignificance to the universe.